Good morning, good evening, everyone. This is Luda Kopikina with GAI Insights. Welcome to Daily AI News Review, where we rate articles essential, important, and optional, saving you some time and pointing you in the right direction of major trends. Today, I have John, Lucinda, who is our regular contributor, senior data analyst at Insight. Lucinda, welcome. And Paul Bayer. Great. John is acting as Ankash today. Ankash has a major holiday today. John is acting.
All right.
Let's start with the first article, John. Oh, before we go in there, the articles are at gaiinsights.com/articles. Please, I see Vivek, Valda, good morning. Please tell us what you think, and as we proceed in rating these articles. Thank you, and let's start. John, please.
Yes, this first one I'll introduce, and also I'm also the person who's going to do the first evaluation. I love this notion of parallel. So it is a company backed by Coastal Ventures and others out of Palo Alto. They've been working for over a year, essentially indexing the web in such a way that it makes it easier to do deep research. And they talk about the web's second user here. And what we have here is some evaluations in terms of their model versus GPT-5 research, for example, deep research comparison. It's, if you look here, human baseline of 20% accuracy, 41% accuracy on successful browsing for a goal. And then parallel has 58% accuracy. And then there's also a benchmark that was put together by OpenAI that they perform better than. I'm going to give this an essential because I think research is one of the top uses, and certainly one we'll see later. Menlo Ventures talks about the fact that the killer app, as we've talked about a lot, is software programming, and I thought with some surprising findings that Anthropic is actually ahead of OpenAI in enterprise adoption. But in this article, I think that one of the most important domains where there's going to be economic change that is a substitution of a machine for a human, or at least a complement of a human with a machine, is going to be in the area of research with a capital R. So whether that research is research at an investment bank for investing, whether it's at a consulting firm for advising, whether it's at a scientific firm, a biopharma, or a John Deere in the research department, R&D, creating new product. I think research is one of the it may not be the largest volume area, but it may be one of the highest value areas that this technology is going to go into. Okay. Because of that and the great performance, I'm recommending this as an essential.
Okay, so essential from John. It's almost like a new entrance in the web search infrastructure specifically for AI. Lucinda, what did you think about this one?
Yeah, I was important, but definitely can be talked into essential. So, John, if you want to just go down to the bottom and show the toggle between human and AI, and human and machine. See the little bottom gray thing way at the bottom? Just click machine.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it here.
No, it's floating all the time at the bottom.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. Just hit. Now that's what your website or whatever would look like in machine, and then click it back to human. And see, that's what it looks like for human. I can think of essential. In addition to deep research, I did a little deep research project on this for how should Ironside reorganize its website to have higher citations by AI, and it gave a fantastic plan. So I do think that this could also be a way of thinking about this parallel universe of how you need to organize your website for marketing. So in addition to deep research, I would also say it probably will have big impact with marketing as well.
In general, right? In all web searches, this is a different. They're essentially creating a remapping the web for AI. So it's a
Yes.
parallel, and that's why they're called parallel, because it's a essentially different path and different infrastructure. Paul, what did you think?
I thought John made a passionate and very articulate case for deep research here. I think this is a product announcement, so I'm arguing important, but I 1000% agree with John's highlighting of the category. I mean, the leaders need to understand AI coding, deep research, and SEO bloodbath as three critical areas. And then the fourth one, I think, is just change management for Gen AI education employees, but clearly important area, and I would argue important for classification.
Well, I think I'm going essential, guys. I'm with John, because it's a leader in the
Feel
category.
the confidence of the chalk, Luda. Don't be
The
apologetic.
category hasn't been highlighted, and I think it is very important to highlight a leader. This is a technology that we haven't seen, and it's a very good team driving it, right? So essential it is. Let's proceed.
Luda, you're from Russia, right?
Right, but
So you find a Russian dictatorship.
no, see, no. On the contrary, it's actually the culture was very egalitarian. It's dictatorship on the top, but the culture is very egalitarian. So it's yeah, okay. I
And
can't.
Paul, I mean, can't we ask you to,
Okay.
shame our favorite president here? Anyway, standing on the roof, looking where he's going to put the ballroom. All right.
Essential. Let's go. John.
Yes, here we have reconfiguring work change management in the age of AI. One of the partners out of the, I think, Stanford office, one of the Connecticut offices, and puts together some stuff here about a 5-step process of crafting a North Star, trust, reimagining workflows, rethinking organization structure, and empowering change agents.
Yeah, and this is Lucinda's. Lucinda, what did you think?
Yeah, so this article grew on me the more I thought about it and more kind of like poked around things. I think it's very interesting because 2/3 of global companies are using Gen AI, but few are unlocking the full potential. And it really, identifies that being an Gen AI experimenter isn't enough to actually really drive it to deployment and where you can really get the big value for your organization. I do think that the 5 different things that they talk about, having a North Star outcomes-based kind of goal, for a business-based goal, trust and governance, because trust is really key. If people don't trust it, then they're not going to use it inside your organization. Workflow redesign, absolutely. I'm seeing that a lot. If you're injecting AI, you need to rethink about the workflow and where the AI interacts with the people. Organizational restructuring ultimately, although when they go to the agent swarms, I'm not sure, who can see that far ahead. And employee mobilizations for cultural adoption. These things are all really important for change management. So I do feel like this is a good kind of template. It gives a couple of data points for how you can, if you follow some of these steps, it can make a difference in your adoption. And so I would give it an important.
Thank you, Lucinda. Paul, what did you think? There are many good change management processes, like a Kota change management that came out in '95, right? And it was used across the process reengineering, many times, right? So there are many processes. This is a 5-stepper that McKinsey developed. What did you think?
Yeah, I think the topic is really critical. I think this article was fair. I really agree with Vivek. I mean, John and I just did training yesterday. I think you have to first open the minds of the executives and individuals on individual productivity level before you jump to the process size. I think that's critical. I think the other ones are fairly obvious. And I think the minimum viable organization, the MVO, they talk about is another buzzword that I don't think for organizations right now. We don't need more buzzwords. We need more plain talking, motivation, and basic tools to get this move from parlor trick to cultural norm here. So important topic, but I mean, critical, essential topic. This article is important at best.
Yeah, I actually, as Lucinda said, it's kind of grew on me to the end, but it's conflicting, and that's why I would say it's optional, because what they actually did internally, they started creating, they had their own bot, and they started creating a culture of people embracing it, suggesting to folks internally to create bots, to use the agent development feature of the bot, to create their own agent. And they say something like 70,000 or 7,000, forget, the large number was created. So at the end, it actually talked through what should be happening first before you put these things in place. So I'm totally with Vivek that it's a conflictual thing. So I was on the optional camp.
Let me just make a quick call for important. I agree with the observations, but I interpret them differently. So it reminded me of two things. One was a very influential article in the 1980s called Reengineering, obliterate, don't automate. And when we have a fundamentally new technology and new capability, I think there's two paths. There's the evolutionary path and there's the revolutionary path. And so this struck me with the minimum viable organization as a way to come from the other end, from the design thing in. Also, one of the things when I was getting my MBA that I found incredibly useful was zero-based budgeting. The whole idea of just shutting down a budget and justifying everything from the bottom up. And this is kind of like zero-based organization, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so I don't disagree with what you said, Paul, in terms of, and we're experiencing it, the difficulty of the practicality of moving the organization with you going forward. But from a senior executive design perspective, the idea of also, and you do it every day. You always talk about right to left thinking, right to left thinking on the organization, assuming we're not reading Hebrew or Chinese, which would be left to right thinking. Anyway, that this is one of those.
But John, see if you agree with this. I think that, you and I have been doing a lot of Gen AI training here. Yeah, Lucinda, it's great to talk about this process thing here, but once you do an agent and once you do an MVO, somebody needs to own that. Someone needs to keep that GP thing going. Someone needs to go train the rest of the people on it. Someone's got to keep that content. And right now, that ends up not being in a lot of job descriptions. It's not being rewarded. There's no incentives for it here. So I think we really, as McKinsey's saying, don't train 1,000 people in the organization on individual productivity in Q4. Instead, focus on 5 to 10 MVOs that still don't have enough infrastructure around them to keep those things going forward all through next year. And we're in the baby steps. And still not seeing more than 5 to 10% of CEOs embracing this.
Yeah, we are definitely, early stage. And, one of the big traps of AI in coding or whatever is to say, we're just going to go forward and do it, right? That is so wrong-headed. It's really got to be iteration based right now. And you start small and you build on it. If you try and just blam this thing in, it's going to backfire totally.
But it is, I think what McKinsey could have concluded is that you need both. You need a case built from the top and actually very visible, communicated, and then the grassroots training, and then focus on the wins, right? And that's any change management framework would highlight those steps, right? But okay, let's do important. It's certainly a great topic, and it's not yet very early stages, so it's good for.
Good, I've got one snark. I don't think we have enough snark this week here. I think the thing they're missing is a minimum viable McKinsey consulting contract size. Only write an article if it leads to $1 million minimum contract here.
Yes, that's right. Okay. All right.
Important it is. Summary and essential.
Okay, let's proceed, John, please.
All right. So let's get to our next article, which is unlocking the. Let's see. Stop sharing this guy. Sorry. Start sharing this guy. Just a moment.
So the name of the article is Unlocking Enhanced Legal Document Review with Lexby and Amazon Bedrock.
Yes.
And I'm on it. So John, I'll proceed.
All right.
So Lexby is a rather small company, 25 to 50 people working in getting sort of e-discovery tools specifically for legal profession. So this particular one is they were working on trying to get the depth. So getting all the documents and not missing anything for case studies, right? So when you have to go in court and argue a case. So they wanted all of the snippets that would be useful to support the case. And they trained the model on the what did they call it? Recall rate. And it actually shows from 5% when they started to 90%. And that's why I thought this article was important, as I rated it as important, because it applies to many other applications. So yeah, from my perspective, it's important. What did you think, Lucinda?
Yes, I agree with you. I had also as important as well. And I kind of went down a rabbit hole of like, well, let's take a look at what would this cost, and I had like ChatGPT 5, just going through and doing cost models. Because my question was, why wouldn't you use Harvey for this, right? I mean, why not do that? And really the argument came up that, Harvey actually, would be expensive, and that even with this for a small organization, it might actually be more cost effective, especially if they wanted to, if they had like very private documents they want to make sure never got out. And also if they have, a very specific way, because Harvey might be for more general legal, and this organization has very specialized. Yeah, and I wanted to also, if you could scroll down to the thing where they show the progression of the recall, Luda, that one, yeah. So I thought it was so interesting when I looked at the diagram. There was no re-ranker in the diagram, and yet look at the big jump they took from from the second to last bar to the third to the last bar. Basically, there's a saying like, as retrieval goes, so goes RAG. And so retrieval is all about, and re-rankers are a good way to do that. I mean, I know that that's one of the huge areas where Alden has focused on, re-ranking and making sure that that's good for the information retrieval. So anyway, I thought it was an important article. I think it was, very good. It's a good use case because it really talked about how they used it and how they built it.
Yeah. Okay, so important from both of us. John, what did you think?
Yeah, I was between optional and important, and I sent it along to my attorney's son this morning, so that's where I am.
Okay, Paul? You're on mute.
Sorry, important.
Important.
Yep.
All right, important it is. Let's proceed then.
All right, here we have Menlo Ventures in their 2025 mid-year update. Very interesting new stuff here in terms of Anthropic surging past OpenAI, and they do this every 6 months.
So it was, Ankash was going to overview it. So John, do you want to present it?
Start us off, sure. Yeah, look, something here super important for everybody to understand: code generation, reinforcement learning. Very, very important here. I think it is the allocation of decision rights to improve, for the model to improve itself. That is incredibly important as we think about the dynamics of machine intelligence and this notion of training models as agents. So as we've been talking about for some time, this evolving enterprise intelligence architecture that we talk about in our buyer's guide, and that modularity. So these two things, I think this is very nicely written. This notion that open source is flattening, I think that's good news for the folks at the proprietary models in the American market, for sure. This notion of do not use open source, you can see the uptick in that. And then this really focus on performance, and This isn't surprising to me, actually, performance rather than price, because when you look at the relative cost, we did analysis for one of our customers. We looked at the relative cost of human inference versus silicon inference, and you're talking about almost an order of magnitude difference. The silicon inference being on the order of a tenth of what the salary would be. Now that was when there wasn't a ton of agentic activity, but economics 101, the substitution of capital for labor is quite significant, but you have to focus on performance because you only get that value when it can actually do the job. So, I don't think it's surprising, but certainly important. And last but not least, the thing I want to point out here is the shift in compute spend. I mean, look at this over on the left-hand side here. This is inference spending, and this is development spending. So it's just it's almost entirely inference is the cost. So the model seems like the model builders own the building and training in large part, and the inference then goes on to the customer cost. So I gave this an essential.
Yeah. So essential from John. It's interesting that I agree with Kevin. It's interesting that their research shows that Anthropic is the leader in enterprise based applications. So, but the way they put it together, it's maybe different. That's why it's Anthropic versus OpenAI. But they show that Anthropic, in terms of computing, is in enterprise, is the largest at the moment. So, Lucinda, what did you think? It's essential from John?
Yeah, I mean, I was between important and essential. It's a really easy read, and it shows so many surprising things that I think most people wouldn't necessarily know, such as the things you brought up. Also, for the inference part of this, I mean, that's basically shows that people are deploying now, right? So you can see how the inference has gone up over the years, and also how startups are super focused on actually deploying things and getting a lot of, we're at the inference stage, not at the development and figuring out how to make the application. So yeah. I think it just gives a great view of the landscape in a very easily digestible manner.
Yeah, totally. Very, very, very tight article.
Very tight.
Not much text, lots of visuals, a very good read. So, Paul, agree with essential?
Yeah, it's a nice compliment to our corporate buyer's guide that we recently released. It's got profiles of 30. The thing I want to note, if you scroll up, John, to the market share on Anthropic, that's really driven by the coding right here. So I think they have a good thing here. I mean, Claude is just taking off like crazy. So that's what it is. So I think we can continue down our thesis called coding is a killer app within the killer app and the killer app. Anthropic is dominating that. So when we talk about enterprise market share, it's driven by that. I think if we look at the other non-coding things, it's not clear to me all that Anthropic is leading that. But overall, tokens enterprise. I think the other thing is it is interesting that the open source is flattening, and that's a trend we've been watching. We've been seeing a lot more companies start hitting the token explosion. The thesis is that they're going to use more and more open source, particularly from China. They're hosted in hyperscalers, and their data is not showing that. It's showing a little flattening. So, there's more of a red hat here. I want supportability, cost be damned, or it's still just still early.
Okay.
I'm wondering, Paul, is somebody going to step up and be the red hat of this stuff? You know what I mean?
I'm surprised IBM or others haven't yet. I just,
right.
It's so early, John. I think they will.
They will. I think it's really early. Okay, essential it is. We still have 2 articles to talk about. So let's proceed to the next one.
Yeah, we got Gemma 3, a 270 million parameter compact model for hyper-efficient AI.
Yes, Lucinda, what did you think about that one?
Yeah, so I think for like most AI leaders, this is optional, but anybody who is like a device manufacturer that is interested in incorporating these small models into their devices, because they're tiny, they can fit on mobile, they can fit on manufacturing type, automation, hardware, etc. And so I think that, it's the other thing is that for this article and for the other article at the end, the physics one, that one, where people are actually using these, the deployed cases are not really kind of coming out yet.
Yes.
But it seems like it will be, if I was to think about it, in terms of on devices, it'll be important. So I think optional, because it's really, unless people are actually experimenting with small models for whatever application. Otherwise important for devices and AI leaders and people who are experimenting with small models right now for a specific use case.
Yeah, so far there's a very high competition in this space, small models on the edge, but yeah, you're right, Lucinda, not many applications yet. So optional from Lucinda for this category. What did you think, John?
Optional.
Optional. Paul, optional, okay?
Definitely optional. One of the things that Ankaj and I have been working on is a market map of the leading small model vendors out there, both open and closed source, and we should publish that next week here. It really is interesting, though, because it's got us do more research on the use cases. So as we get to what looks like the more typical enterprise intelligence application, which is multiple models underneath, one of which may be a smaller one for both routing and for cost, we think there's going to be more and more market for this. But definitely optional for this article.
Okay.
And I just shows us, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, please.
I think the whole edge stuff is a whole nother category.
Yeah.
Small models in a hosted center is completely different than small models on physical devices that don't always have internet connectivity and have small energy footprints. Here is a completely different market. So cars, games, smartphones, physical robots, very, very different, and it's going to be.
Right. And we reviewed
leaders there. Yeah.
Yeah, and we reviewed Liquid AI with a new model, right? It's not mentioned here, but it actually beat small. So when you look at the whole landscape, it's a very different landscape, right? That's completely different, right? Okay, optional it is. Let's proceed to the last one, John.
All right, here we have three guys from Spain who are better dressed, and they also know how to name models better. One of them is called Chick Brain, which I love. So this is a product announcement and very impressive performance. As a person introducing this, I'm going to do this in optional. It's fun. It's this notion of smaller models, compressed models. Here we have its performance on math, on some of the other benchmarks in terms of the Llama 3.1 and Llama 8 billion and the Llama 3.2 3 billion parameter model. So I would give this an optional, but as Paul said, an incredibly dynamic space and something to watch. I'm starting to refer to this as the Cambrian explosion of silicon intelligence. We really are, that's where we are. And what's going to be really interesting is the relationship between power, control, location, and autonomy. Because these things are going to be very important. Everything from warfare to products and services.
Yeah, but what's interesting about the methodology is that they are based on their technique is based on quantum physics, and the folks who started this company are all professors or deep experts in this space, and what they offer is effectively a compression methodology that you give them the model or even fine-tuned model for your application, and they compress it without losing performance. And that, I think, is important development that might be worth highlighting. Lucinda, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this is a great distinction. And I think also what Paul had brought up before about, that mobile and remote and power efficient is a really key area. And really, if you think about it, fine-tuning a small model does involve real costs. And if you're that actually, worried about cost, fine-tuning is cost. So like for the average LLM, the average AI leader to fine-tune a small model because of cost just doesn't make sense. But it does make sense for the device and remote and edge manufacturers, because that way it can be leveraged off of a product line. So yeah, I agree with optional. And yes, it's a whole new way. You have to see, is this going to really have an advantage in the marketplace over other small models, et cetera. But yeah, it's very interesting, very dynamic space as people have.
Yeah, so I would not focus on their models. I would focus on their methodology and ability. So they can be a service company or are a service company. What did you think, Paul? Could we elevate it to important or stay optional? What are
No, definitely optional.
Definitely optional. Okay, optional it is. So we have for today, we have two essentials, two importance, and two optionals. A very balanced Friday. Paul, any announcements?
Yeah, two announcements. John mentioned the power. I grew up in Ohio, and there's a text message flying around about a family we know down in Ohio that's being offered $35,000 an acre for 100 acres of their farm, and they've turned it down to build a data center here. So the data centers are pulling up data here, and it's a big controversy in that rural farm area. The Learning Lab on Monday, super excited. Chase Williams, who is a summer intern in high school, is going to be doing an integration case study, how to use NAN integrate Zoom with our HubSpot. So join us Monday for a high school senior who's using NAN agent routing to automate internal reporting for us.
Thank you, Paul. And with that, thanks, Lucinda, for joining. We conclude the week. Happy Friday, everyone. Thanks for joining, Vivek, Kevin, Valda. Thank you very much. And see you on Monday.
Bye, everybody.
Always good to talk with you guys. I really love this. I love the fact